of seconds to continue. All right, I've started now.
Kia ora all. Welcome to this Vincent Community Board meeting under COVID level 4 lockdowns. Welcome to our guests, Karen Jefferson from Ahipara, Nigel Smelly from the Alexandra Blossom Festival, and Jan Bean from the Central Otago District Arts Trust, who are in our public forum. Now we can see you guys, and I don't know if you can see us, but we're just pretty pictures on the bottom of the screen. But I think we'll kick it off. Guys, you understand you've got 5 minutes. Wayne, who will be listening in on this, will gong you when your time's up. So, Karen, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'll start by unmuting myself, otherwise you'll see me talking for 5 minutes and not hear a thing. Anyway, thank you first for the opportunity to present what we're planning to do out here at Lauderdale. I'm assuming you've all read the paperwork that was sent through, so I just wanted to add stuff that wasn't included in the paperwork. So firstly was just a quick background about Jean-Michel and myself, who own Lauderdale and Ahipara. We moved to Central Otago just after the financial crisis, and that was to put more eggs in the basket because our tourism business was affected then, and we thought we better look at a domestic business. We then had both businesses take off, being the wedding business at Lauderdale and our international tourism business, and thought one had to close because we had moved down here for lifestyle as well and to give time to the children, who were all young, and so we shut the wedding business down. Along came COVID and we thought, oh no, why did we shut the wedding business down? So we've now looked again at transitioning back for a domestic business. We believe that international tourism is going to be disrupted for the foreseeable future, and so it's important for us to invest in the property that we have here and make this work for us. Our children have also all grown up, having all been to Dunstan High, and last one there in year 13. So basically making Lauderdale work as a venue is a first priority for us. We are looking at establishing it for special celebrations and focusing mainly on weddings and music festivals. And this is where we come into this main music festival that we're talking to you about. It's the inaugural festival that we are looking at basically showcasing Central Otago and its landscape. That Lauderdale sits with this amazing Hawkton backdrop and is an absolutely stunning property with historic ruins. It's got a dozen established redwoods, and it's just very much Central Otago. And we want to present Central Otago local food, wine, beer, and then unite this with a Maori Pacifica music theme, which is very soulful, and really just creating that connection for Central Otago with the Maori Pacific culture, which is really that cultural backbone of New Zealand. And so we see this as very unique in the country, but particularly so in Central Otago. Our aim is for this to become an annual event for the next 10-15 years, and it's a must attend festival for those people that are keen on festivals, and a sort of more I suppose the music genre that we're going for is more for the group 40 plus is the demographic that we're going for. We've changed the event a little bit from what you've seen in the paperwork because the numbers just weren't working at $500 a ticket to 500 people coming, and that was partly because of the infrastructure that we had to build around to make it that standard of event, because we had to make sure that they were warm, that they were covered. So it was just the numbers weren't working. So we're looking now at making it more 1,500 people at a $250 price point. It's still going to be 6 live acts, mainly from probably around 1 o'clock in the afternoon through till about 9 o'clock in the evening. As far as the numbers, 1,500 is still a really intimate festival. Most of them are 10,000 plus, most of them actually 15,000. So it's going to be unique in the fact that we've just got that 1,500 people and we're pairing it with Central Otago food, wine, and possibly artists as well. I'd like to get some local artists showcasing sculptures, and we have a church that we could actually exhibit some local artwork as well. We'll also be building a range of packages for 3 to 5 days to bring people into the region and to stay and to see other parts. And we also have started talking to Oliver's about doing an unplugged day the day after the big festival. Timing has changed. We were looking at first for February, but all the accommodation is booked, and that's, Central Otago is full in February. So we're looking at November, which is an off-peak season. Accommodation has got availability, but obviously we can't do November 21. There's just far too much to work out. So it'll be November 22 is the date that we're aiming for. We are still negotiating the headline acts, so we're still talking to 660, Fat Fruity Drops, and Pete's was another one. The music director has been down about a month ago and working really closely with her. We've also had stage production people down from Christchurch scoping that out. And now we're really, I suppose, just looking at what other funding was available, because obviously our risk, well, our appetite. Oh, that is 5 minutes. That's it. I'll open up for questions then. I think I've probably said as much as I can.
Members, any questions, please?
Yes, thanks, Martin. Yes, I have a question of Karen. What other funding options have you been considering, bearing in mind that perhaps the target market?
Oh, right. So the only other funding that, well, we've had the Southern Lakes Event Fund, so we've received $50,000 from them. We had, and then the only other one is now Vincent Community Board is the only other funding that we're looking at. We may investigate sponsorship, but the sponsorship would come more at this stage from some of the local wine growers, and I think everybody is fairly tight at the moment. So at the moment, it's just you guys and the event fund that we've already got.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
We'll now move on and ask Jan to talk to us. Hello, Jan.
Just give me 1 second, please. Great, thank you.
Okay. Hi, Martin. Thank you very much also for giving me the opportunity to speak to my application, and also for your consideration of the proposal to bring live literary events to Central Otago through Cover to Cover authors' talks. I've always been a bit of a bookworm, and books have been at the heart of my life. I've been wanting to do something along these lines for some years now through the Central Otago District Arts Trust. I'll draw your attention to the first sentence of my application, which says, "We need writers and artists to show us the worlds we may not be able to see." You've got the what and the how and the when in my application, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about the why, the background and the inspiration for this project, and also how we can make it a success in Central Otago. Damien Barr is a Scotsman born in Glasgow who grew up poor and very marginalised during the Thatcher era. It was the power of words, his ability with language, and the encouragement of a very supportive English teacher which helped him survive. He launched his first literary salon in 2008 in Shoreditch, London. These monthly events were quickly a hot ticket, and soon they outgrew their original surroundings. Now the Damien Bar literary salons are held regularly at the Savoy Ballroom in London, where tickets sell out within minutes, and he's widely credited with revitalising live literary events worldwide, actually. However, of most relevance to us is the fact that his literary salon began simply, with a very small audience, and he deliberately chose small and intimate surroundings, which would, by their very nature, encourage his guests and participants to share their stories. With Cover to Cover Auckland's authors' talks, we also plan to start simple, small and controlled, to keep it workable and manageable. And by laying this sound foundation, we'll then have the potential to grow with each venue and each year, and each event and each year. So therefore, Cover to Cover is based on this tried and true formula. I know it works. I've followed Damien Bar for many years now, and importantly, he has a strong connection with New Zealand. I attended a memoir writing workshop that he held in Dunedin in 2015 at the Dunedin Writers and Readers Festival. He subsequently held the University of Otago Scottish Writers Fellowship at the Parr Homestead in Auckland for 3 months in 2018. And I attended one of his literary salons in London in February 2019. And there I witnessed firsthand just why and how this formula works. And put simply, it celebrates a local, national, and global community of writers and readers. Stories are for everybody, and everybody has a story. But some stories are often overlooked or hidden, and sometimes it's difficult for writers to have their stories told. Stories are shared to better understand ourselves and others, and to ask better questions and provide worthwhile answers. Cover to Cover will also ask questions that the audience really wants to hear, but it will all be about listening too. In time, we'd like to video these sessions and make them available to view on the Kodak website. I'm unsure exactly, I did a little bit of research, but I'm unsure exactly how many book clubs there are in our region, but I know of at least 20. We're a nation of readers, and a report from 2018 from the Book Council indicated that we read an average of 35 books a year each. With the first event, we'll talk and celebrate the work of the 2021 New Zealand Book Lovers Award winner, Fiona Sussman. And I must mention her support with this, because her support has been absolutely unwavering. She's committed wholeheartedly to making this event a success. And she is a resident of Central Otago, so that makes it even better still. I have really nothing else to say except thank you, and I look forward to chatting more if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jan. Members, any questions? Don't be shy. Jan, what happens if we don't fund you?
Well, Martin, I think we would probably, in the first instance, look to next year. We can make this work on a relatively tight budget, I believe. I'm thinking contingency plans at the moment if we are affected by the COVID-19 restrictions. So I've got a couple of plans in place for that. We would have to look elsewhere, Martin, and I haven't given that my 100% commitment yet. We still have time, and I think we will just wait and see what what happens as a result of this this application and take it from there.
Thank you. Karen, can you still hear us? Because one of our members, Anna, has a question for you, but she pushed the wrong button earlier on, so I'll go back to you if I may.
Okay, no, that's fine. I've just unmuted myself.
Anna.
And I have too. Can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you. Sorry, I obviously hit the wrong button before. Karen, thanks for your submission and speaking to it. I just have a question regarding your proposed 1,500 people for your first festival, and the fact that you're catering for your HNWI people, your high net worth individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And just wondering where or to what capacity does Central Otago have to accommodate these people?
Right. Okay. So it won't be ultra high net worth like the $500 ticket would have been attracting. So we're expecting more people through from the Queenstown and Dunedin area, so fewer from Auckland. We have started booking accommodation through Clyde, Omakau, Ophir, Cromwell, and also obviously Queenstown. We can accommodate people that are coming further afield. So that's where we'd be looking at putting buses on from Queenstown for those that wanted to stay in Queenstown. But ideally, we're getting them across here. Obviously, we can't keep 1,500 people here, but you know, we can do. I think we were looking at 300 rooms, so 600 that we could easily put through the region.
Okay, and they are of a calibre that are suitable. Yep, cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you, Karen.
Okay.
Members and guests, you might notice the comment from Rebecca, because this has been live streamed over the web to interested residents and ratepayers who may not recognise our dulcet tones. Just introduce yourself when you're asking a question, and just remember that as we go into the more formal part of the meeting. Next out of the blocks, Nigel.
Afternoon all.
Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Is that, will it switch across? There we go, perfect.
Thank you.
Firstly, thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity to video in today on behalf of the Alexandra Blossom Festival Committee. My name is Nigel Smelly and I'm the Treasurer of the committee. The committee is very grateful for the previous and continued support that the Vincent Community Board has shown towards this long-standing iconic Alexandra event. This support has ensured the success and certainty of many previous years' Blossoms festivals. As it's only recently that we met, I'm not going to go through all the benefits again of the Blossom Festival and what it provides to the region. However, I did just want to highlight that this is a significant and iconic family-focused event that contributes hundreds of thousands of dollars of benefit to the local economy. Thousands of people from outside of Alex flock to the region each year to celebrate with us. You may recall that for the 2019 event, we received cell phone data that showed an increase of 120% in cell phone movements to the region and a 7.8% increase in card spending over the weekend of the festival. Without the support of the Vincent Community Board, our budgeting shows that the festival would generate a significant loss of approximately $29,500 per year. This funding provides certainty to the committee that the festival will be able to proceed and allows the focus of the committee to be on the event rather than on whether we will be able to generate the funding to proceed. Outside of the monetary benefits, the Blossom Festival is looked forward to every year by all age groups and demographics. It brings the community together. The power of the joy and goodwill that the festival brings to the region cannot be undervalued. After generally a long, cold and foggy winter, the festival is an opportunity to raise people's spirits, to celebrate the start of spring and how wonderful Alexandra and the surrounding region is. I implore you to keep these facts in mind when making your decision and how important it is to the committee to have the certainty of the funding from the Vincent Community Board to ensure that the future of the festival for the next 3 years. This event is important to Alexandra and its people. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Members, any questions of Nigel?
Hi Nigel, Ian Cooney speaking.
How you Ian?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
The money towards the community projects, how much are you planning on giving towards those community projects this year, and what type of projects are you supporting there?
So as a committee, we've looked at that, and we have been looking at our numbers and taking into account various factors. And we have ring-fenced approximately $50,000 that would be able to commit to a community project. The project that we have highlighted is that of the Riverside Park project, which is being supported by the council, I understand. So that's what we're looking to do this year. One thing that we have to keep in mind is when we're looking at the budgets and what we can contribute back to the community is around the fact that we need to keep funds available in the event of a last minute cancellation. So say there was a weather event on the day, which meant that the event was cancelled. In that case, we'd be looking at losses of around about $100,000. So, you know, we take that all into account. We've been looking and calculating what it is that we can contribute to the community. I think one thing just to note too is with that funding that we've got available there for a community project is that that's been built up over a number of years from modest surpluses that the festival has been able to generate. And these are coming from the park ticket sales, the slide shows, the bar income, and the other non-grant funding that we receive to be able to do that. It is also important, I believe, that we do continue to be able to make those small surpluses, because if we do have an event where it is cancelled, we need to be able to build that back up. So, you know, looking at numbers and budgets is my specialty, what I do. So we are quite prudent in that. So, you know, through the good management of the committee over a number of years, we are fortunate to be in a position where we can put something back to the community, and that's a key part of our principal sponsor and the arrangement that we have with them as well.
Could you just elaborate on that arrangement with your principal sponsor, if you don't mind?
I don't have all the details with me right now, but we have been in discussions with them, and part of what the sponsorship that they provide to us is that we do look to do something with the back to the community with what the surpluses that we've been able to build up, and that's what we're looking to do.
Hi, Nigel.
Thank you, Ian.
It's Lindley Claridge speaking.
Hi Lindley, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Just wondering if there was an event that caused the Blossom Festival to have a problem and not be able to run, would you relook at the situation of the community grants? You need to use your funds available.
That would be something that we'd have to look at as a committee. You know, at this stage, we've looked at it and identified that we are in a position to be able to do that. Obviously, we're hopeful that there isn't going to be an event that would cause us to cancel at last minute, but we do have, with our numbers and what we've been looking at, the ability to cover that if that was to happen. But obviously, if it was to happen too many years in a row, would not be good.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Lindley. Thank you, Nigel. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I have. It's Russell Garbutt here.
Hi, Russell.
Yeah, hi, Nigel. If, for example, the event was having to be cancelled because of COVID this year, what sort of loss or call on the reserves would have to be made, in your view?
This year's event is something that we're still working through. We've got a committee meeting tonight to discuss this year's event and just to work through what those scenarios may look like. So we haven't done that at this stage, but we've got a meeting tonight to discuss that and work through that part of it. At this stage, it's still business as usual.
Yeah, just further to that, but if it was to be cancelled for whatever reason, what sort of figure do you think would be sustained by the committee?
As I say, that's something that we need to work through, because we've been very communicating with the suppliers we're still far enough out that if we had to make a call, that we would be able to hopefully cancel a lot of what we have to put in place without any financial loss. But there, as I say, that is something that we need to work through and relook at those numbers. Obviously, it is a difficult time at the moment with COVID. Everyone's having to scramble to a degree to work out what's happening. Tonight at our meeting, we'll take into account where the alert levels sit and what that may possibly mean. Obviously, for the event to go ahead, we do need to be at alert level 1. But as far as a figure goes, I don't have that at hand right now. That's something that we need to sit down with and just work through and see what we'd still have to be committed to at certain stages to figure out what we are going to do as a committee.
Okay, no further questions of Nigel. That being the case, thank you, participants in the public forum. We will now commence the formal part of the meeting.
Through the chair, Martin.
Yes.
At this stage, the public forum participants are going to leave this forum and
Yes.
watch online. So if we just have a moment to allow them to do
we've
that.
got 5 minutes up our sleeves, yes. So thank you.
Thank
Karen,
you.
Nigel and Jan. Bye.
Thanks for that.
I'll start the meeting at 2:30, Rebecca.
Okay, it's still being live streamed, so just so those at home know that we're just pausing to give those who have participated in the public forum a moment to then join from home. We can't tell if they do that or not. I sent them the link directly, so they shouldn't take too long to be able to do it.
Well, we'll make a start then, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, members, to this meeting of the Vincent Community Board of the 31st of August 2021. On page 7, we have the minutes of our last meeting, which was on July 20th. Can I have somebody please move and second they are true and correct record?
Martin, I'm happy to do so. Russell?
Russell, thank you. Seconder?
Yep, I'm happy to do that. Anna?
Anna, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. There are no apologies. So we will move on, just reminding people of the declarations of interest, and I'll just reiterate that when we come to the next item, which is the promotions grant, that because I'm an employee of the Blossom Festival Committee, and any decisions you may make, I have a pecuniary interest in what's going on. I'm now going to declare an interest and actually leave this meeting and hand over to Russell. I'll ask Wayne to send me a text when this is finished, because I'm going to shut off all systems and just walk away from here. I won't even listen in. Okay.
Martin, just before you disappear, I have got an additional declaration of interest in which I did notify Wayne about, and that is membership of the Valence Cottage committee.
Yes. Okay. Wayne's aware of that.
It's Charlene here, just to be clear that I too won't be having any conversations around the Alexandra Blossom Festival, as I am the chair of that committee.
Thank you. All right. Russell, you're in the chair. I'll now excuse myself, and Wayne, just send me a text when you welcome me back. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, members. So we're moving on to the agenda item 5, which is on page 18 of our agenda, reports for decisions on the promotion grant applications 2021-22 first round. And first up, I'd like welcome Ellie to the meeting, and we've read your report, Ellie, obviously, and the performance metrics, or the metrics and the associated paperwork that goes with this. But if you would like to tell us what you're thinking.
Oh, okay, folks. Thank you for your time this afternoon. So, taking that you've read the report, just highlighting that the board has a full year grant budgeted of 31,000. 26,000 of that has already been pre-allocated for this current year to the Blossom Festival, leaving you with $5,000 in the budget for applications in this year. This year, for the first time, you can take multi-year applications. So that's applications for the first 3 years of the LTP, and each of the 5 applicants has given you a 3-year request for funding. And other than that, the recommendations are based around approving funding within budget. So when you've got applications that are in a much greater level of funding, we've made a decision that to be fiscally prudent, we should be approving within budget, and therefore not all applicants will receive funding.
Ellie, just a question on this 31,000. Where did I can recall in the various conversations that we had in the LTP discussions, we were discussing figures that totaled, and that was for the community grants and for promotion grants, a figure of around about 190 or 200,000 or something along those lines per year. I'm slightly confused as to where this figure of 31,000 per year came from.
Russell, I am not the person who can answer that with any confidence. I think Saskia would be the one who was in the room when that was discussed, and I'm wondering if she's actually in the meeting and could comment on that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Saskia here. We did reduce it slightly, Russell, but I'm wondering if the better person to answer that would actually be Leanne. Leanne, are you in a position having the numbers with you at all?
Good afternoon, Leanne here. Thank you, Saskia. I actually don't have them in front of me right this moment, but I will try and get into the system now and see if I can pull those numbers while you're looking at the report. It does depend on how well my internet decides to work. So give me a few moments and I'll see what I can do. Okay.
Any other members aware of this 31,000 budget item on promotional grants?
Yeah, hi Russell, Ian here. I would be interested to know what the promotion grants pool was previous to this year, if possible.
Off the top of my head, there was 26,000 in a separate line item for Blossom Festival, plus around 46,000 in general promotions. But I believe that the community funding has increased. It's now around 120. I'm not sure what that was previously.
Okay. While either Saskia or Leanne or is just following up on those, just going to the report, and I'm slightly confused when I look at the recommendations on page 18, where if we look at C on page 18, and we look down to the Alexandra Blossom Festival, it's in there is year 1 LTP 2021-22, applied 24/5. And the recommendation is that it be declined, but we previously granted a hardship grant of 26,000, which you mentioned below that, I think on page 19.
Mhm.
Why does that figure not appear in C?
So in C, so this is a completely new funding application. So, and this has no bearing, or my reading of it was that it had no bearing to the previous application because that had been made and approved and resolved by the board. So the interpretation I had was that there was a funding application from Alexandra Blossom Festival and that they were seeking an additional 24.5 for year one of the LTP plus funding for the next 2 years.
So just to clarify that, is it your understanding that the Blossom Festival is asking for 24.5 in year 2021-22 plus the 26?
It was to be honest, Russell, it was slightly confusing on the application document. In the written copy, it didn't mention that, but in the actual application figures, they applied for 24.5 for each of the 3 years, current year and years 2 and 3.
So is there an expectation that 26 grand may very well be returned if the 24.5 was granted in year one?
I would not assume that at all.
So is therefore your expectation that if the 24.5 was granted in year one, was it your view therefore that there would be 24.5 plus 26?
You would have to rescind the resolution for the 26 without looking it up. I think it's 26,000 and something before we could say they would just get the 24.5. So if there was funding approved in year one, yes, they would get both lots of funding.
Any other members like to comment on this?
Hi, it's Lynley here. I did think that the hardship grant was because of a timing issue and that it was one and the same thing, but I might have that wrong for the year one.
Lynley, the hardship grant has been approved and released, so we've been invoiced for that and that's been paid out. So if we do go down the path of considering another additional grant in this current year, that would be in addition to that original funding.
Any other members' questions? No. Has there been any progress on deriving where this 31,000 budget item came from, Leanne?
Sorry, Russell. Yes, I have got the answer. We've got 120k promotional plus 41 Alex promotion 41,750, and we've paid out the 26 already to, I think that was the Vincent, the Blossom Festival. 26,179. I'm not sure if that's the whole amount. I can't drill down to the detail. The systems just keeps freezing on me.
Right. Okay. But the question is, I think, and I haven't heard yet where this 31,000 came from, particularly in relation to the promotional grants.
I'm sorry, I haven't got that detail right here, Russell. Everything's just freezing up when I'm trying to operate that at the same time as having the this going as well, the team's going. I can't get that detail.
Okay, because that is actually crucial to this conversation in terms of the amount of money left in the allocated budget for promotional grants, because how the report reads is that there is every year $31,000 in the promotional grants. And because of the 26 that was granted and approved by the board, there is only 5,000 left in year one.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. That was in the report that the board reviewed when they were assessing the application from the Blossom Festival Committee for that hardship grant.
Okay, I see there's a message there from Sancha saying that 31,000 was the budget identified during the hardship grant round at the June meeting. So if that is the case for the hardship grant, how does the hardship grant relate to year one of the promotional grants?
The hardship grants were to be funded from the promotion grant within year one of the LTP. So the 31,000 is the total budgeted amount of that grant, of that fund, and therefore the 26,000 that the board approved has come from that $31,000.
Can you understand the, I was going to say confusion, but perhaps maybe lack of clarity?
I'm not sure. I thought it was relatively clear that the board had 31,000 budgeted for year one, and that should they approve funding through hardship, that it was from that, but obviously it appears that that wasn't clear enough, so I do apologise.
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, is the message that there is only 31,000 in the promotional grants for year 2 and 3?
That's correct.
And my question therefore is, how was that 31,000 agreed to as the cap for the promotional grants, when my understanding was that there was a total allocated funds available of about 190, and that was the community grants and promotional grants? I'm just interested to know where that was split.
I cannot comment. I wasn't in the room when that was discussed.
It's Leanne here again, if I can just intervene. The bucket of money, the bucket of grants got pulled, as I understand it. We've got the 120k for the total, and then we've got an additional 41,750 for the Alex promotional. So it's been split that way.
So where did the 31 come from?
I can't answer that. 31, the number 31 rings a bell to me when we used to have 26 for the Blossom Festival plus 5 for, I thought it was traffic control or something to that effect. But I haven't got that detail in front of me, I'm sorry. I have to go and find that report and see what it refers to.
Yeah, because certainly my, Leanne, just to clarify that again, you mentioned 120 plus 47.
No, 41, 750.
41. My recollection is quite clear that we were sitting in total grant funds of around about 190. There was considerable discussion about whether or not it should be increased to 200, but I think it was resolved that, and I'm just going by memory here, that it was resolved to remain around about 190 combined. Do we other members have recollections along these lines?
Hi, Russell, Charlene here. Yeah, I agree. I remember those conversations.
Okay, because quite clearly, Ellie, those are going to have the clarity on those figures are going to have considerable bearing on the decisions that we make. But perhaps at the way that the recommendations are made at the moment in the report, I think you're asking us to take an omnibus decisions on all of the applications, but clearly in the conversation held prior to the meeting, we would like to take decisions on each one of the applications, but with a view obviously to looking at the totality of the cumulative effect of those individual decisions.
Through the chair, Russell, the CEO would like to make a comment if possible.
Yeah, sure.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us as we work through this sort of way of doing meetings. The conversation may have just moved on with what you've now said, Russell, but I'll just note that the 31K was in the June numbers around the budget for the year for hardship grants. It's very difficult for a staff member who's doing the grants application solely related to promotions grants to respond to it. We can look into that and come back to you. And of course, we can doing that outside of this meeting while we're all on the screens would be the best way for us to do that.
Thanks, Sancha. Yeah, while the 31K may have been identified as a hardship grant, the clarification needs to be whether or not the 31K represents, as is represented in the report, the total sum available for promotions grants.
Just in response to that, sorry, to be clear, in June, during the hardship grant round, it was identified that it was the total budget for the year, and any grants approved would come out of that budget, and the remaining would be the leftover that you had for the year, which is the position that Ali's brought through. We will look into, though, where the 31 came from specifically outside of the meeting, but that was quite clear in the reports in the June hardship grant rounds as well.
Okay, thanks for that, Sancha. Right, well, in view of the desire to address each application, and bearing in mind this slight confusion over the already granted hardship fund by the Blossom Festival for applying to year one, plus the additional 24.5 that is being applied for in year one. Can we look at all of these individually, and perhaps if we can start with the A&P Society application, and for those that need to look at that, I think that's on page 33 of your agenda. So the Central Otago A&P Society, they have asked for 7,500 in year one, 5,000 in year two, and 5,000 in year three. Ali has noted that we granted them $3,000 in last year. There was to signal that they perhaps needed to be more self-sustaining. Ali's made the point that she believes they've got enough money in the reserves, their reserves, to pay for that without us paying for that. Any members' comments? And I think just for clarity, perhaps if we can just go around everybody. So Roger, any views on this?
No, I'm happy with Ali's recommendation.
Ali's recommendation is that there be, I think if I'm right, 0 in all years.
That's correct.
Correct.
So Roger, Lindley.
I was also happy with Ali's recommendation with that one.
Thank you. Ian?
With the recommendation also. Thanks, Russell.
Thank you, Ian. Anna?
Thanks, Russell. Yes, I'd like to go with Ellie's recommendation on that.
Thank you. And Charlene?
Also agree. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a fairly clear indication from that one. We'd like to move on to the Winter Stellar, which is on page 49.
Through the chair, Russell.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful to move and second that one now, or would you? Are you taking each resolution separately?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. I think it would be helpful to take each resolution separately. Yeah, thank you very much indeed for that. We'll have to, because the recommendations that staff have made in terms of these are omnibus, so I think if we just replace these with individual resolutions. So would somebody like to move that the staff recommendations for the AMP Society are agreed to?
I'll
Sound
recommend.
like you, Russell, I'm happy to move that.
I'll
That's-
second Lindley.
So just to clarify through the chair that the recommendation is that the Vincent Community Board decline the application from the AMP show.
Correct. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yeah, I.
Thank you. Okay, so on to the Winter Stellar, which is page 49. Now, the recommendations are that, well, the requested sums were 20k, 25k and 15k for the 3 years. And just dive back to page 18. The recommendations from staff are for Winter Stellar that $4,000 is granted in year 1, 10,000 granted in year 2, and in year 3 the application's for 15 grand, but the staff recommendation is that 0 be granted. Discussion on that.
Russell, could I interject for a moment, please, and declare a slight conflict of interest since REAP have been involved with the children's program that's run alongside Winter Stellar?
Sure. Would you like to therefore withdraw from this consideration?
Yeah, I think that's best.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, conversation, Roger.
I think it's a very innovative event, and I've been to the previous 2 that have been well supported by the community, and I think it deserves an injection of capital to keep it going, and to hopefully they will establish some appropriate entity to form a basis for an ongoing Winter Stellar. So yes, I'm very supportive.
Thanks, Roger. In terms of the disparity between the funding application and what the staff are recommending be approved, what's your views on that?
I'm a bit unclear as to what the implications might be, and especially in terms of the next one, which will presumably be in the middle of next year. But I can't really comment any further than that.
Okay, thank you. Because we do need to put I just remind everybody that we do need to put either a yes or a no, or a dollar figure on any variation on the staff recommendation. So I hope we're giving that a little bit of thought. Okay, so thanks, Roger. Lindley.
I also think this is a very worthy event but going forward as recommended, I think it should be funded by the district. But I'm happy to support the first year. I'm not sure about the second year until we see how things are going. Although it does say approved subject to a satisfactory report back of year one. So I'm certainly happy to support it. But I'd like to hear others' comments on the dollar figure.
Thanks, Lynley. Ian.
Thanks, Russell. I'm in support of the staff's recommendation.
Thanks, Ian. And Charlie?
Thanks, Russell. I guess it's hard when you can't talk to the fact that 20 was what was asked for and 4 is what was given, if that is going to be substantial enough for them to be able to do what they need to do. And it would be interesting to know what a satisfactory report, the standards of that. What are we actually looking for?
Yeah, my question is, I guess, to Ellie, in terms of something that I had difficulty understanding with this one, Ellie, was why you decided perhaps to give half of what or close to half of what the applicant wanted in year 2, but when it was difficult or when it was going through this starting up phase and they might need the most help, that you suggested 4,000 rather than the 20,000 applied for?
Through the chair, the figures that are approved in year 1 were to ensure that the funding was approved within the current budget levels and not tapping into reserves.
Okay, that comes back to perhaps the lack of clarity for something else that we're going to be talking about in terms of Blossom Festival, whether or not there was 26 plus 24.5. So if that constriction was not there, Ellie, would your recommendation have been differently?
Bear with me, I will just double check because I did provide in your matrix an option should the board wish to fund greater than budget, and that was looking at $10,000.
Right. So if the situation was that in fact that there was a total, the total available was a great deal more than the 5,000 which is currently indicated in the report, you would have supported a greater dollar amount for year 1 for the Winter Stellar.
If there was that funding available, however, there's not. So, and from what I've seen in the long-term plan figures, and so therefore my recommendation was to fund within budget. However, the option is always there for the board to consider using reserves.
Yes, yeah. Any other comment on that? Lynley, bearing in mind your comments before about the dollar figure, any comment?
I'm happy to support it as recommended.
Yeah, my difficulty is here at the moment is really establishing with clarity what the total amount of money that we've got in this pot. On one hand, it might seem to be 31,000, although that figure is not yet clear where it's derived from, but or whether or not it's 5,000, which is quite a considerable difference.
Through the chair, if I look at long-term plan, our annual plan figures, and in the budget line there is $31,000, and already committed from that is $26,000, leaving $5,000 for this current year. So I think that tells me that there is only the $5,000. If there is additional funding, I'm not sure where I would find it.
I've got to admit, I'm still not clear on this. There's a message there from Linda that says 42 plus.
Through the chair, I suspect that's an error.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep. No, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. I'm just not sure how to proceed in here, because if other members are absolutely clear that there is only $5,000 here to dispense within the allocated budget, then that's fine. But I'm not, and I think we'd be making decisions based on potentially wrong information here.
Got the cameras on. Excuse me.
A message there from Tim, page 110 of VCB June agenda. That's the agenda with the reduced promotions budget pool totaling 31,000 in the LTP. It would leave 5,000 only for its advertised contestable funding in July 2021, should the board agree to grant the amount requested. And that is in relation, obviously, to the Blossom Festival hardship grant, because that, was the only bit that applied. But I think, Tim, my point is that the 31 grand that I can recall was never identified as the ongoing promotions grant. That was the hardship grant. But what appears to be said, or being said, is that the hardship grant equates to the promotion grant.
It's Leanne here, mate, if I can speak.
Yeah, sure.
I understood that the hardship grant was bringing forward this year's funding in advance because they could not wait to the full round taking place in September, like now. And so it was still out of this year's budget, but it was just being delivered early because there was an impact on people, as in salaries or commitments to get work done.
Right. Do any other members understand, or did they have the understanding that the total amount, therefore, in the promotional grant was 31,000 per year?
Hi, Russell. Yes, that was my understanding from the June report. Ian.
So your understanding is that the total promotional grant was 31,000 per year, and that had been identified?
Yes, we were told that when we made the decision about the hardship grant for Blossom Festival.
Right. Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that? No. So the only bit of clarity, I guess, in terms of the total amount of pot left in year one, is whether or not we know therefore that the Blossom Festival 26,000 is already allocated against that. And there just appears to be a little bit of lack of clarity about whether or not the current application for 24/5 actually applies as well. So on that basis, there is an alternative to this, and because it seems to me that if the Blossom Festival, for instance, were to withdraw one of those lots of money, either the 26 or which has already been applied for and paid out, or the applied for 24/5, if that was to be not applied for, then would it be, in the view of Ellie, would it be appropriate to make a slightly larger grant to the Winter Stellar to get them over that first year?
Through the chair, Russell, it's Rebecca here.
Yeah, Rebecca.
Can I just suggest that the committee could decline the Blossom Festival grant in the first year, and so that then for year one of the LTP, so then that takes that 24.5 off the table. However, there is still only $5,000 in the year one pot to allocate for the promotion grant.
Unless we use reserves, that's what.
Unless you use reserves, yes.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I was sort of, thank you very much indeed for that, Rebecca. That would be a logical way of doing it. What's the view of the board members for using reserves for part of the Winter Stellar for year one? Roger.
I think the $4,000 for a year one would be a worthwhile amount for that festival, rather than digging into our reserves for that. So I'd be rather disinclined to use our reserves for that purpose. Thanks, Russell.
Thanks, Roger. Lindley?
I'm happy to go with the $4,000 for the first year.
Thanks, Lindley. Ian?
Yeah, to consider using reserves, I think we would need to know what the reserves amount would be and what would potentially be taking money away from. And yes, so I think to make that decision, if we were considering reserves, I would first need to know that information.
Fine. Yeah.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
If you go to page, I think it's 169 on your agenda, you'll see the reserves as at the 30th of June 2021, accepting that they're not audited yet.
Yeah, I think that's about 2.76 mil or something along those lines, is it, Leanne?
Something like that, 2.581 is our projected at the moment.
Yeah. So there is a significant amount of reserve money if members wish to make a slight dip into that, if they wish to. So the last...
Sorry, through the chair, it'll be 1.83 when they look at the income and expenditure from this year being added.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you.
Still a lot.
Yeah.
I just ask a question. It's Lindley here. Would I be correct in thinking that sales of sections from the Alexandra subdivision may increase our reserves?
Leanne here, yes, that is correct. But that would be in, I'm assuming that to be already in the annual plan for this current year.
Okay, Charlene?
Yep, I'm happy with the 4,000 for this year.
Okay, would somebody, it seems that we have got majority of people would like that. Would somebody like to move that the staff recommendations for the Winter Stellar, and that is 4,000 approved in the first year, 10,000 approved in year 2, and 0 in year 3. Would somebody like to move those?
I'll move that. Roger here.
Roger, thank you. Seconder?
Second that, Lindley here.
Lindley, Thank you, Lindley. Any further discussion? Put that to the vote then. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Passed. This next one is the book to books, which is on page 81.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Roger here. I'll withdraw from this item as I have an interest in the Arts Trust.
Thank you, Roger. And Anna is back in the conversation.
Thank you.
Right, we've seen the staff recommendation there. The Arts Trust, or the cover to cover, has applied for 4261 in year 1, 7218 in year 2, and 9055 in year 3. The recommendation is that just finding them again, sorry, finding them there, and that in year 1, the staff recommendation is that instead of the 4261, that $1,000 be approved, and instead of in year 2, instead of 7218, that $2,500 be approved, and in year 3, that in the application of 9055, that there would be nothing approved or nothing granted. Conversation on that one, please. Not Roger, Lindley. You're muted at the moment, Lindley.
Oh, I'm sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Sorry, I'm happy with the staff recommendation on this one.
Thank you. Ian?
Yeah, I'm happy, but the only question I have is, do we need to have in there in the recommendation or in the decision something about what happens with the funds if the event doesn't go ahead?
Right. Ellie, would you like to comment on that? I think that normally there's something in the agreement that funds would be returned, wouldn't they?
The grant policy covers that off. If the funds can't be used for the approved project, then they're either not uplifted or returned to the board.
Yeah. Yeah. Anna, thoughts?
Yeah, I like the idea of the project, and I like that they are bookending the, excuse the pun, Blossom Festival, using that as kind of their start date. My only concern with going with the recommendation is that we don't allow them enough funding to go ahead with their project. So I without wanting to dip into the reserves, I was wondering about swapping around and going $2,500 this year with a following $1,000 next year if the event is successful. So giving them more support this year to actually launch the idea.
Yeah.
Here, I agree with your comments, Anna. I think that it would make great sense to swap those figures around.
Which does mean dipping into reserves very slightly.
Yep. So if Anna and Charlene are both suggesting that 2.5 and the 1,000 be swapped around. I did note though in year 2 the application is almost twice the size of year 1, but I can understand that business about wanting to get it underway. Thoughts on that?
No? Charlene here, I guess the thought is that if they knew that only 1,000 was coming, it would also give them that extra time for year 2 to look for more sponsorship and other funding streams.
Yeah, just perhaps a clarification here. Do these decisions mean that we can't, in year 2 and 3, revisit the decisions in terms of reviewing at least this amount of support or non-support, Ellie?
Through the chair, that they are definitely able to reapply in future funding rounds. So there's scheduled to be 2 rounds per year, which will run as long as there is funding available. Next one will be in the first quarter of next year, and then another one will open up on 1 July, the new financial year. So definitely able to reapply.
Thank you. Could I ask a question just to seek clarification? It's Anna here. Is that so they can reapply for the same project to that same fund? So, sorry, just to clarify what I'm saying, if we grant them funding in this round and then they reapply to that the same pot of money next year for the same project, they're able to do that.
That's correct. There'd be nothing to stop them from reapplying.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. I think that's very helpful. In light of those comments, in terms of Charlene and of Anna, what's the rest of the board's view on swapping those amounts granted in year 1 and 2 for the cover to cover? So it would be 2,500 in year 1 and 1,000 in year 2.
Be happy with that. That's Lynley here.
Ian?
Russell, so if we swap the figures around and give them 1,500 from reserves this year, are we then able to put that money back into the reserves next year?
Well, the reserves are being constantly replenished through the variety of things, as Lynley suggested. The income from the joint venture at the Pines is a significant one of those. I also do note that, as I think Leanne has pointed out in her report later on, the Vincent board has got considerable reserves compared to everybody else, really.
Through the chair, I'm not quite sure I said that, but there is reserves there. But recognising if you've got a number of projects in the long-term plan, that if there's capital work, we'll rely on those reserves.
Yes. Yeah. Some of those.
If there's a value in developing other land, that would also require capital.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure that we've got other land to develop, but however. So the general consensus, as I understand it, Ian, just to clarify your position on that, you'd be happy at swapping those 2 around?
Only if the 1,500 from grants could then go back into reserves the following year.
Or reserves would be replenished by that amount.
Are you suggesting that, sorry, through the chair, are you suggesting that you'd still rate that amount, but it wouldn't get spent and would drop to the bottom line, which is your reserves?
Effectively, next year you would take 1,500 off promotions and put it into reserves.
Don't think I agree with that.
No, that's a way of doing things.
No, it would be a strange way of doing it, Ian, I think.
Yeah.
Through the chair, would you not just adjust next year's annual plan budget?
I think that would be the way to do that, of course, wouldn't it? Okay, it seems that we've got relative consensus on that. So in terms of the cover-to-cover events, would somebody like to move that 2,500 be approved in year 1, 1,000 in year 2, and 0 in year 3?
I'm happy to move that. It's Anna here.
Anna, thank you, Anna.
Charlene here, happy to second.
Thank you, Charlene. Any further discussion on that? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, carried. Move on to the Festival of Light, Festival of Light, which is on page 87 of your agenda. They have applied for 25,000, 10,000 and 5,000. Thoughts, Roger?
I have the horrible feeling that it's not really well suited to our area. Perhaps it's just my own particular view of what is the best sort of event to run in Central Otago, but it just seems a little bit out of kilter with the events that work well in our area. So I think that the recommendation of 0 for each of those years is the appropriate one.
Thanks, Roger. Lynley?
I think it's a great idea. I just think at this point in time, dipping into our reserves for this particular event, we couldn't justify at the moment. So I'm happy with the recommendation as per the staff.
Thanks, Lynley. Ian?
Yeah, thanks, Russell. I'm happy with the staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Anna?
I agree with Lynley. I think it's a great idea. And yeah, while I hear what you're saying, Roger, that it maybe is quite out of line with what we normally have as a festival or successful festivals around our area, I applaud them for thinking outside of the square. And yeah, to be financially prudent at this time, I do think that it is probably the right idea to decline their application this year, but I would really like them to encourage them to apply again next year.
Thanks, Anna. Charlene?
Absolutely, I think it's it sounds like an amazing festival actually, and if we had the funds, I think it might have been a different conversation, but I'm happy to agree at this stage with the recommendations.
Okay, would somebody like to move in that direction?
I'd move that. It's Lynley here.
Thanks, Lynley. And seconder?
Roger here. I'll second it.
Thanks, Roger. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. We come to the Blossom Festival, which is on page 101 of your agendas. Now, obviously, Charlene's dropped out of the conversation. So we've got this obvious solution, perhaps, in year 1, if it is declined for year 1, bearing in mind that the 26,000 has already been approved and paid out. The staff recommendation is that 0 be allocated in year 2 and 3. Comments, Roger?
The 0 for year 1 does seem to be appropriate in line with view of the 26,000 that's already been allocated. But why would it be 0 for year 2? I'd like to see something in there for year 2. Thanks, Russell.
And year 3?
And we can perhaps leave year 3 as 0 at this stage, given that the Blossom Festival can apply for funding at a later stage for that.
Thanks, Roger. Lindley?
I agree with year 1. I think that 26,000 was what I thought was year 1, but the Alexandra Blossom Festival is an icon of the Vincent community for 65 years this year, and I think it's essential that we support it. So I'd be happy with the 24,000 in year 2 and 3.
Thanks, Lindley. Ian?
Thanks, Russell. Yeah, I just wonder, the Blossom Festival Committee has $50,000 to give to community projects, and it's the Riverside Park, which our ratepayers are already funding. So are we doubling up by then giving them 24,000 in year 2 and 3?
Can I just make a comment on that? Do you mind?
No, not at all.
My understanding from Nigel before was that the Blossom Festival has an agreement with Contact as the principal sponsor. That part of that agreement is that they do make a grant to the community, and would that jeopardise their grant understanding? If we...
Through the chair, I asked Nigel if he could elaborate on that agreement with the principal sponsor, and he was unable to. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Anna?
Thanks, Russell. Yeah, I agree. Year 1 should sit at 0, given that they've taken that hardship grant already, uplifted that. Year 2, I think there should be something there, maybe not that 24, but definitely, as Lindley said, it's an iconic event and something that brings great benefit to our ward. So we definitely, as a board, should be seen to be supporting that in some capacity. And just further comment to what Ian and Lindley were just discussing, I just wonder, Ian, because you suggested that Blossom are looking to fund the Riverside Park and our ratepayers are already contributing towards that. Perhaps is the question there that the funds which Blossom Festival put towards community amenities or something that is of value to community could be spent or reallocated in a different way to some other project which ratepayers aren't already contributing towards.
Thanks, Anna. I would be more in favour of the staff's recommendation of the with the money remaining in our reserves.
Okay, thanks, thanks, Ian. Yeah, my understanding from the conversation from Nigel was that there was an understanding by Contact that any surplus or any reasonable surplus would be committed to community type projects, which were able to be allocated in a way that didn't necessitate a group or a body or an individual or whatever coming to us again asking for a particular little thing, which we may or may not have the funds for. And it seems like, and I'm sure there'll be more conversations about the total amount of promotional grants per year in the future. But if there is, and none of us, I don't think, know what that agreement is with the principal sponsor, but if there is an understanding that that should be there, then I think that we can't ignore it. There has been a suggestion coming from Rebecca The suggestion for the resolution could be that given the 26,000 allocation through the hardship fund process, that no additional allocation is provided for the 2021-22 financial year, and that 24.5 is allocated for the 22-23 financial year, all the figures as agreed. And another point that Ellie has made is that the Blossom Festival may also reapply to the Southern Lakes Events Fund again too, which they were successful with last year, and that may be the case, but of course we can't speak on behalf of the Southern Lakes Events Fund. We've got to make our decisions based on what we know and hear. But another message from Dylan Rushbrook. Can I just speak to the Regional Event Fund piece Alison has just raised? So Dylan, welcome.
Kia ora, everyone. Just quickly on the Regional Event Fund piece. So the Regional Event Fund still has a reasonable portion of funding left in its pot for the 22 year or 22-23 year. That funding round, which will capture Blossom Festival 2022, will open up in January and close around about late February, with the decision to be released by the 1st of March, which should give, or will give, if Blossy are unsuccessful in getting funding through the Regional Event Fund, time to reapply to the Vincent Community Board for the 22 financial year fund.
Great, thanks, Dylan. I guess my concern is that what the community perception may also be if we were to say that the board no longer financially support or no longer are willing to financially support the Blossom Festival. I think that just is worthy of thought. It seems that we've got two schools of thoughts. One that the area that is covered by Rebecca's suggestion, which I think is a very good one, that the 26,000 allocation through the hardship fund process, because of that, no additional allocation is provided for the 2021-22 financial year, and that 24.5 is allocated for the 22-23 year, all figures as agreed. But I would like to move from the chair Rebecca's suggestion that that the no grant be granted in year one because of the 26 grand, but that we grant 24.5 in year two and 0 in year three.
May I speak through the chair?
Yes, certainly.
Just bearing in mind that we've already, through the previous resolutions, approved $11,000 out of that $31,000 pot, so 24.5 will overextend the annual plan budget unless it's altered.
Yeah, we would have time to do that for next year, of course, wouldn't we?
True.
Yeah.
Through the annual plan process, yes.
Yes, through the annual plan process. Yes, so we can do that. Is there any interest in seconding what I've suggested?
Roger here.
Yes, Roger.
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
Sorry, it's Anna here. I just want to seek clarification. Russell, you're suggesting that we can adjust the fund for next year, given you're suggesting 24,500 come out for Blossom Festival in the next financial year. Is you're suggesting that 31,000 be increased to allow for this?
Yeah, well, I'm still, despite the comments that have been made, I'm still really wanting further clarification on the hardship grant relating specifically to the promotional grant, because I don't believe that there was a clear understanding, perhaps, that that was the case. However, if it means therefore dipping into reserves for next year, depending on what is granted, of course, in the further promotional grants, it may or may not be necessary. What I'm really suggesting is, which has been moved and seconded, that we grant nothing this year, but 24/5 next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Lindley, thoughts on that?
Can I just seek clarification, please, where you said nil in year 3, that doesn't preclude them from coming back in year 3, does it?
No, and if anybody else wishes to amend this to that 24/5 be granted in year 3, that's up to them.
I'd be happy to amend that if I had a seconder.
Just before we do that, just a comment from Sancha that we don't have to make next year's decision next year. You don't need to grant it now.
So that's correct. So whilst the applicant has asked for 3 years, a 3-year funding round, you can make a decision just for this year and revisit next year, unless you feel there is a reason that not giving that certainty of funding for next year would be prohibitive to them in running the event. So you could say reapply next year.
Through the chair, I would suggest that that doesn't give them the certainty that they need to move forward.
Thanks, Lindley. I think that there is that. I think in all of these things where a large organisation like that is employing people, there has to be a certain amount of surety going forward. We can't operate on some things on a year-by-year basis. It would be very unfair. So Lindley suggested an amendment to that motion that the 26 grand, there wouldn't be anything in year 1, but in year 2 there would be 24/5 granted in year 2 and year 3. Is there a seconder to Lindley's motion? No, therefore that would lapse. So the motion before us then is that there would be nil in year 1 and 24/5 in year 2. Any further discussion on that? No, I'll put that to the vote then. So all those in favour of that, please say aye.
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 That's 2. That was Roger and Lindley.
Yeah.
Ian?
Yeah, I'm considering whether I'm in favour of the staff's recommendation or what Sanchia said, leaving the decision to next year.
Okay, well, we've got a motion on the vote at the moment. So it really comes down to an aye or a no, Ian.
Based on 24,500 in year 2.
Correct. And
I vote no to that one. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Anna?
I vote no to that one.
So we've got, in that case, if I read this correctly, because I would vote for, it would be myself, Roger and Lindley for, and Ian and Anna against. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right, so in that case, that motion is passed. I think either Rebecca or Ellie, probably Rebecca, or just one point, yes, Ian and Anna, would you like your vote recorded in the minutes? Yes, and yes is the answer to that. Rebecca, are you happy enough with the resolutions that we've passed so that we can then go to the next item?
Just if we could get a mover and seconder for the which was just that the report be accepted in the
Sure. I'm happy to move that one, and do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it. Roger here.
Thank you, Roger.
And Ellie, can I just clarify with your understanding? I think we've now considered each grant application. Is that correct?
That's correct, Rebecca. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Russell.
Great, thank you very much indeed. And thank you, members, and thank you, staff, too, for the consideration of that. And as we saw right in the beginning when we were talking through this, that does seem to be either a lack of understanding or a little bit of confusion as to where the various figures came from and why they came from there. So I think if we can ask Martin to rejoin the meeting now, and he can take over.
I have sent him a text, so we're just waiting.
Right. I mean, just so that we're all okay, I think the next thing is the Aurora agenda or Aurora easement thing, which is on page 129. So we're all ready for Martin.
Hello, good people. Thank you. Thank you,
Martin.
Russell. Hello, Linda.
Good afternoon.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. This afternoon, I would like you to consider a proposal to grant an easement over the Alexandra Cemetery land. There are 2 blocks contained in the cemetery land. They are local purpose cemetery reserve. Aurora proposed to upgrade their network through Letts Gully and the Springvale area, and to do that they would like to install a cable to link their existing supply in Dunstan Road to Letts Gully. To do that, they will need to obtain easements from approximately 11 different property owners. So there is a little bit of work there to be done on their behalf in conjunction with the granting of this easement, should you agree. The location of the cable is well outside of any area that is proposed to be used for the purposes of the cemetery. So it will be running down the northern boundary and as close to the northern boundary as physically possible. And we have an agreement with Aurora that if the easement is granted, that they will actually do some cleanup works down that boundary. There's quite a bit of debris and some trees which aren't really suitable for the purpose of the cemetery at a later date. So today I'd like you to consider the proposal to grant Aurora Energy an easement over section 1 block 38 town of Alexandra and over section 1 survey office plan 496959, and I would like you to grant that subject to Aurora obtaining all of the rights and permits and consents required to actually install that cable between Dunstan Road and Letts Gully, that the easement be down that northern boundary to a maximum width of 3 metres, with all costs being met by Aurora, and with Aurora clearing that northern boundary to the satisfaction of the Parks and Recreation Manager and the Minister of Conservation's consent. Any questions?
Yeah, hi Linda, it's Russell here. Just a quick question. What's the process of obtaining consent for the easement over the other blocks of land that we don't own? Is one, does everybody need to do it before, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So there's the shortest, they've looked at the shortest route that they can go through that will have the least impact on the fewest, on the least number of private landowners, because they will require an easement from all parties. So that is why the first condition that it is subject to is that Aurora need to obtain all consents and permits and other rights. So other rights being easements from those private landowners between the council land and Let's Gully land, or Let's Gully Road, sorry.
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up to that question is, I presume it wouldn't be foreseen to have problems obtaining that easement or those easements from the private landholders.
Oh, I couldn't speak to that. But like I say, there's approximately 11, dependent on the route that they use and dependent on who they can obtain agreement from. So it is a little bit of a negotiating to go on behind the scenes as well.
Is there a road that they have to cross there? I see in the map.
That is Gilligan's Gully that runs up there, but at some point, I think that road might change to private, but they would be able to put their services in the road reserve, so that wouldn't be a problem as such. It's more that they would need to negotiate with all of those private landowners between where the council land ends and Let's Gully Road.
Lovely, thank you.
Does anybody else have any further questions of Linda? That being the case, could I ask somebody to move A and B and C?
Happy to do that, it's Russell.
Thank you, Russell. A seconder, please.
Roger here. I'm happy to second.
Is that Charlene or Roger? I'll go with Charlene on this case. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Linda.
Lovely. Thank you.
Hey, we've got page 136, item 21.7.4. Renaming of a portion of, renaming of a road in Dunstan Park.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is an amendment to a road name.
Yep.
Last month we named 5 roads in the Dunstan Park subdivision in Alexandra. That information was then passed on to LINZ for their acceptance of the names. The name Hewitt Crescent was rejected by LINZ, as this name's already in our district. Today we're looking at an amendment to that name from Hewitt Crescent to Williams Crescent. The name is pre-approved by LINZ, and the recommendation is to approve the amendment from Hewitt Crescent to Williams Crescent.
Thank you, Faye. That's pretty straightforward. Do I have somebody please move A and B?
Happy to do that. It's Anna here.
Thank you, Anna. Seconder?
Happy, Russell.
Russell, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, item 21.7.5 on page 152 of your agenda. This is the road renaming a portion of Farad Street in Clyde. Again, Faye, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So yes, looking at renaming the portion of road between Newcastle Street and Fash Street to Seaton Street. Farad Street is divided into 2 sections, which does cause issues for the emergency services if they have a call out. The name Seaton was suggested as the street borders Seaton Square. So the recommendation is for the Vincent Community Board to approve the change and make a recommendation to Council to ratify.
Members, are there any questions of Faye, please? It's pretty straightforward again. Okay, we all fully understand what's going on? Does somebody have their hand up?
Lindley, so I'm happy to.
You're happy to move it? Seconder.
Roger here. I'm happy to.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Perfect.
Thank
you.
Item 21.7.6, page 164 of your agenda. Donna, welcome. Financial reports.
Good afternoon. You've got Leanne, if you recall. Donna
hello, Leanne.
we're having a great day with internet. So Donna's is breaking up left, right and centre. So I've agreed to present.
Okay, we'll go to the top then. Fine, not a problem.
Cool. So good afternoon, everyone. Before you is the financial report for the period ending 30 June 2021. A few points to note, please. One is that we are actually going through the annual report process as we speak. So these are clearly unaudited 30 June figures. I've also noted in this report a few comments against the annual plan, because for our annual report, we always report against the annual plan. Does that make sense so far? Open. You will see that we've finished the financial year, the Community Board has finished the financial year 697k favourable to the revised budget. A key part of that was the valuation gains that you can see there of 217k, and that is around the revaluation of forestry and commercial property valuations that we perform every year as part of the annual report. You'll also see that there's additional funding and capital contributions and reserve contributions, which makes this favourable to both the revised budget and also the annual plan, and significantly to the annual plan, the additional revenue. Moving forward to other costs, again, extremely favourable to budget. You'll see that we have underspent in, right, start that again. We have underspent in quite a few categories, including professional fees and staffing costs. You will also see that depreciation has increased, and that came as a result of the revaluation of the pool. And although we're phasing that in, there was always going to be an increase in this year, and it came after the annual plan was set. Hoping that makes sense. The capital expenditure, while we look like we're only 53% spent of the revised budget, when you look at the total annual plan, which is how Audit New Zealand looks at it, it looks like we're 148% complete. And that reflects the fact that we had additional income from the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Enterprise, so we could do the work that we refer to in the report. You'll also note that the reserves table is an appendix, and we that again remains unaudited, and once we are through the annual report, we will be putting in the budgeted expenditure and income for this year, so that you can keep tracking what your reserves look like. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Leanne Russell here. I was interested in what seasonal variations that you referred to, and forestry. I thought we were out of our forestry thing with the QLDC. Are we involved in other forestry?
We clearly have a small amount of forestry on the books still. It's not significant, but it is there. And I can't tell you the location off the top of my head, sorry. Our seasonal work often is around the pool and the swimming pool, and given we had a period of time where that was closed, I would imagine that would contribute to it. And also we had timing between positions, and that often causes a variance as well.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Leanne, members?
Roger here.
Roger?
Just a quick comment. I've found the table of the reserves very handy, apart from the fact that I found it very, very difficult to read. I wonder whether perhaps once the final version is available, that we could have a one that we can print out more legibly. Maybe it's just my aging eyesight, but I find it very, very blurry.
I'll certainly see what we can do. This is pulled from our finance system, but I will see what we can do by making it a bit bigger and a bit more readable for you. Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Leanne. Does any other members have any questions of Leanne? If that be the case, I'll move we receive this report. Can I have a seconder, please?
Roger here, I'll second it.
Thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you, Leanne. Moving right along.
Thank you.
Your worship, the chair's report.
Mayor's report. Kia ora, members.
The mayor's report, I should say.
Hope everyone can hear me well. So I wasn't able to attend the last meeting. I had a funeral to attend, so this covers quite a bit of a period of time. And much of that period has been continuing work on the Manihirakia minimum flow process. The 19th of July was the final of quite an incredible 14 meetings of the Manihirakia reference group. And now I won't put my camera on. Thanks, Rebecca, because I know what I look like. All right, I'll put my camera on. Thank you. I haven't got dressed up for the occasion. My apologies, folks. I did get dressed up for a meeting this morning that I'll talk about later, and nobody else did. So there you go. It's a different way of working. Anyway, yeah, there were 14 meetings of the Manihirakia reference group, and after 2 years, that group came away with no outcome. And I'd say that my time on the group will be one of the most frustrating experiences of my time as mayor of this district. At the conclusion of those meetings, the independent chair of the group in a verbal report to an ORC workshop following the last meeting implied that I'd supported a minimum flow of 1,800 to 2,300 litres per second. That comment was reported to me by councillors and members of the public in attendance at the workshop. So as a direct consequence of that, I attended the ORC meeting of 25th of August in the public forum capacity to emphasise the point that I never did and never have advocated a certain minimum flow regime on the river, either personally or on behalf of the council, and that until such time as the science that was supposed to guide MRG was complete, I wouldn't be doing so. I also took that opportunity to advocate strongly on behalf of the protection of our native galaxids and the tributaries of the river. Some species of those are on the same level of the endangered species list as the takahe, so that is right up there. And I've got to say, in MRG, I sometimes felt a lonely voice in the room speaking for the galaxids, and it was a voice often drowned out by Fish and Game, a professional lobby group for the invasive pest that is trying to wipe them out. I today received the final report into reporting requirements imposed by the Commerce Commission on Aurora NG through the period of the CPP. That was the meeting I referred to earlier. While the reporting required is not as strong as I'd like it to be, it goes further than the starting place had been. And I think it's fair to note, and I did to the Commerce Commission, that for some people, and quite a number of people in Central Otago, you could have Jack Reacher watching over, it still wouldn't be good enough, but we are where we are. Two things are important to note though. Firstly, while the customised price path is set for the next 5 years, the reporting requirements are not. So if they're found to be inadequate, the Commission can and will relook at it. So that's important to note. And secondly, and this is quite an important one for board members in your discussions with the public, there's a requirement that Aurora shares its complaints, any complaints made by stakeholders to the Commerce Commission as part of the process, and that includes any complaints made on its social media page. So if people have complaints, and I'm not looking for trouble here, but if people have complaints, and we so often get this with the council as well, that people will vent on, you know, you're from Cromwell or Central Otago Today or Central Otago Whinge or any number of other Facebook pages, but it doesn't do any good. So if people want to have, if people have legitimate complaints about Aurora, I'd suggest that they put those legitimate complaints on the Aurora Facebook page if they want to go through the social media method, because that then does get fed through to the Commerce Commission through the reporting process. And the other thing that's really been taking up a great deal of time has been the Three Waters reforms, and that's appropriate to such a significant proposal. And it was really good to see so many members of the Vincent Community Board taking the opportunity to sit in on and contribute to council workshops last week that were designed to provide information to the decision makers. Getting information out to the public in understandable bite-sized chunks through a series of, let's say, fairly well-received videos, they're sort of sitting around 1,000 views each, has been quite a time commitment, but well worth it to get information to our public. It's been, up until this week, I think the government has done a really poor job of getting information out, and there was some releases today which have gone on the CODC website, sorry, this week on the COD website from DIA, which is helpful. But yeah, and I've also taken the opportunity over the course of, I'm confused at which week we're at now, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, in the course of a week to speak to Clyde District Lions, Alex Rotary and U3A, thanks to Roger and Alexandra on the same topic. So it has been not quite all encompassing the three waters, but it's something to for all of us to consider when we've got staff doing the BAU in a pandemic, and it's got three waters on top of it, because I know how much of a commitment of my time it's been and will continue to be until such time as we have to make a decision on whether we're in or out. Our next update on that is essentially a month today, the end of September. We get the next word from the government of where to from here, and that will be an interesting day, I'm sure. So that's really a snapshot of what I've been up to. I've stuck to my bubble. I've enjoyed going for walks through the course of the day, and we've been blessed by lovely weather and by a community that recognises the need to hunker down. And even though there's a lot of people saying, well, there's no COVID in the South Island, why on earth are we under a lockdown level? I liken that to people saying, I'm not going to wear my seatbelt until I've had a car crash because I won't need it till then. So I think the community and the meetings I've had with police, social services agencies, civil defence and so forth, the community is doing a great job of just doing what needs to be done. So that's me. Happy to answer any questions through the chair. Thank you, Board and Martin. You're gone to sleep.
No, Tim, just a question regarding the Manihirakia thing and the decision that the ORC made to get more science to inform them of a decision. I watched the recording and or combination of the recording and live of their meeting. Have you got any comment to make regarding what's been happening with the regional council subsequent to that meeting with petitions to the minister, etc.?
It's a difficult position to be in, being a mayor asked to comment on another council's internal ruction. So I feel sorry for all of those involved, and I probably diplomatically should leave it in a public forum at that, Russell.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Russell. I just had to comment that the first time I've ever heard Jack Reacher mentioned at a community board or council meeting. So there we go. For those who are not familiar with Jack Reacher, I suggest you read his books. Read the books. Has anybody else got any question of His Worship? That being the case, I'll ask him to move his report and I'll second it.
No, I can't move the report, Martin. I'm not a member of the board.
I'll move we accept his report. Thanking you.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Now it's my turn. Basically, reiterating.
Second the report and move it, Marty.
Seconder for it, please. Lily, thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. My report, well, I'll just reiterate what Tim was just saying about Three Waters. We, as council, we've had 5 2-hour workshops last week, which were enlightening to a certain degree. There's still a great mass of information missing, and it is a challenge when we're communicating what's going on to our public. There are a lot of questions out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I urge members to go to the website. There is some valuable stuff there coming out of LGNZ. There's one 18-page document which I found very helpful, which answers a lot of questions, a lot of technicalities. But this is going to be the issue on our calendars this year. It is massive, and it's going to probably get a lot more controversial than it currently is. So keep yourselves informed, and when you're being asked questions by the community, direct them to the website. The team in comms here have done a fantastic job, and there's a lot of good information up there. The other thing of interest which has come out this week is also the consultation document on the spatial plan, which is available from the website. I urge you all to have a look at it. It's been a few tweaks since the last time we workshopped it, but this is the document which is going out now to all the stakeholders for their views to finalise what the spatial plan would look like. And probably, as you're aware, my life has been rather busy with the forthcoming possibility of us having a Blossom Festival, that with my work hat on. It's sad to see things being cancelled. I was talking to Brian Aitken, who's the director of the Musical Society's production of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Very hard to have rehearsals for a show when you're in level 4 lockdown, so they have cancelled with a possibility of bringing a show back to Alex next year. The Blossom Festival Committee's meeting tonight, and we will have a discussion on where we go to, but my phone has literally been running red hot, and with people, participants, and people like market people who are just dying to know what's going on because they want to be here and they want to come and have fun with us in the sun. So people, keep your fingers and toes crossed. So that's my report. Russell, would you like to move and somebody second it, please?
Yep, fine.
And who else?
Roger, I'll second it.
Roger, all in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll go around the table now and hearing from members. I'll start down with this on my right with Charlene, and I'll work through. Charlene.
Martin, just a quick update. We had the Youth Expo at the start of August, thankfully, before COVID hit, and we had just under 600 young people through, so that was pretty exciting. Massive thanks, obviously, for the support of the venue from the council and the community board. It was a great day had by all. And as far as delegations, the Blossom Festival, yeah, like Martin said, we are definitely crossing all our fingers and toes and hopeful, and tonight to make some sort of direction so that we can know which way we're going to head either way. So that's it from me.
Anna.
Thanks,
Anna.
Martin.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Not too much in my report this month. I have sat in on the Three Waters meetings last week, and it was really great to have that opportunity to listen and learn a little more. So thank you to the staff for that, putting the work into that and making that happen. I also attended a Valence Cottage Working Group meeting by Zoom at the end of July. I think it was school holidays, so I was home with kids and in meetings as well. But not too much to report from that one. Items of interest, Jesus Christ Superstar by the Waiata Theatre Group. I attended that and it was awesome. It was such a cool event to go and enjoy, and to see the effort that had gone into it by a small and passionate team. And in the school holidays, I also had the opportunity to visit Stewart Island. While the rest of the country was getting rained on, I was in Stewart Island that wasn't being rained on, and it was just stunning. I'm not saying that it was a bad thing that was happening in the rest of the country, but it was pleasant to be down there out of the rain.
Thank you, Anna. Ian.
Thanks, Martin. I sat in on the August hearings panel. I attended a Vincent Spatial Plan workshop, followed by the CODC business meeting. I attended some of the Three Waters workshops, which were helpful with presenting lots of information. And work-wise, been busy putting lockdown procedures in at work at the rest home, and discussing with other homes and in general the shortage of aged care workers in Central Otago. And other than that, I've been spending time with my children while they're off school during the lockdown.
Thank you, Ian. It's a challenging time for parents homeschooling. I'm pleased my 19-year-old's 19 years old and I'm not having to fight over maths books with her. Lindley.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that. I just catch up, attended the last council meeting, attended the daily 2-hour council workshops on the Three Waters, visited Central Stories on the 3rd day of the Will On. And from a work perspective, funeral director, we've been through a really difficult time where no one's allowed to view or have services. So from tomorrow we can go back into 10 people services and viewing of people in their own bubbles. So that's a positive. They're difficult times at the moment for those that lose their loved ones. That's
yes.
it for me.
Yeah, I've had a former neighbour and very close friend pass away over the weekend, and not being able to go around and give the family a big hug is really quite difficult, and I certainly empathise with what you're going through, Lindley. Roger.
Thanks, Martin. I'll just get things going here. There we are. I attended the workshops also on the Three Waters and found them very useful. I'm glad that they were in the form of 2 hours per day for 5 days rather than 9 till 5 all in one day. I would have found that rather exhausting. I had various meetings, the ADMI board, on which I'm an observer. I had Andy Davey of Winter Stella asked whether he could have a word with me, nothing to do with the funding. It was, in fact, he had some ideas of what he could do next year with Winter Stella. Ran the Creative Writers Circle. We had the first of us planned 4 U3A sessions, and that included having Tim along, as he mentioned. He spoke on the Three Waters. But unfortunately, the 3rd and the 4th of our series had to be dropped because of the lockdown. I'd also been involved in fairly intensive rehearsals for a performance on stage at the Dunedin Town Hall, and just 4 days before the performance we went into lockdown, so that was a bit discouraging to say the least, and see that there are just so many other organisations that have been putting hard work into preparing for some event, some major event, whether it be a stage or whatever, and have had to drop out. It's very discouraging when that happens. So that's my report. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Roger. Russell.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I'll just bring my report up. As Anna reported, we had a Valence Cottage meeting. I did attend an Alexandra Musical Society soiree, and attended also the LG&Z Zoom meeting on the Three Waters, which was I think held on the 9th of August. There was about 250 elected members from around the country that attended that, and that extended out from an hour schedule to an hour and a quarter. Probably frustrating in some ways, at not enough time to get some of the questions answered. We've had a further progression in terms of the Heritage Trust working towards a case to go to council for the district museum function, and that's been progressing extremely well. And lastly, I think I attended all of the 5 sessions on the 3 waters run by the council here. And again, I think a huge amount of thanks to the staff for the work that they put into that. And in particular, I really must say, in the session with the 2 DIA people and LGNZ, that was particularly useful. And I think as it came as a considerable shock to a lot of people, that the impression that government are giving is that there'll be a unified charging rate for water or water services. That is quite clearly not true. I am continually frustrated by the fact that the government continues to broadcast the very misleading and mischievous ads on television regarding the 3 waters, and am dismayed at their level of communication of facts rather than impressionable fairy tales. So that's my report, Martin. Thank you.
I'll move we receive those reports. I need to get a seconder for that, do I? Moving along, folks, page 173, the governance reports. We've been through this. Anything that members wish to discuss or have drawn attention or ask any queries of? No, that not being the case. Okay, well then I'll move we receive those reports. Can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded, Lindley here.
Thank you, Lindley. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And please note the date of the next meeting being the 11th of October.
Hi Martin, Charlene here. I'll second the members' reports.
Thank you. The date of the next scheduled meeting is the 11th of October. And that's it, folks. We'll I'll just move that we exclude the public. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
In here.
Happy to second. Anna here.
Anna, thank you.
Right, ending the live stream now.
Thank you.
It was not